Howdy, folks. Welcome to Redneck Gone Green. I'm your host, David Cobb. I am the redneck. You bet I've gone green, and I'm trying to get you to do it too. And as we do every week on this program, a reminder that when we talk about going green, we ain't talking about mere environmentalism. We're talking about something deeper, the interconnectedness of all of life. And whether you come at that realization from a hard science perspective, or you come at that from a deeply eco-feminist spiritual perspective, or like me, you say those are both perfectly valid ways of understanding the world and how it operates. I'm here to tell you, whatever we as humans do to the web of life, we are ultimately doing to ourselves. And let's be honest, y'all, we doing it wrong. We are literally destroying Mother Earth faster than she can replenish herself. And this is happening because of a political economic system called capitalism, which turns everything or attempts to turn everything into a commodity, profit driven. It is a system that is the logic of unlimited growth on a finite planet. And as if that's not bad enough, we're literally creating a racist, sexist, and class oppressive world order with the plunder. And our window to do something about that is literally closing before our eyes. And on that very cheery note, let's, as always, bring in our good pal, Shane Knight. Shane, how you doing, brother?
I'm doing all right for a moan day, I guess. How are you?
Looky here. I got to say it this way, Shane, and it really is true. And that is this. On a personal level, man, I am so good. I am happy. I'm healthy. I do meaningful, productive work for which I am respected by people I respect and frankly hated by my class enemies and ever more by liberals. Uh, I reconnected with my junior high school sweetheart 13 years ago. I'm getting a do-over in life. I got a 120-pound yellow lab that gets my fat ass out there walking every day. I mean, like in every way, Shane, my personal life is chef's kiss.
That's awesome. And I know that's true. And I'm happy to hear that for you. I had to say the same thing. It's just, I'm glad that Mel does the whole tracking the crisis thing because I had to give up Friday. I just gave up. I couldn't look at the news anymore. And to be fair, I haven't had the energy to do it since then. It's been a rough, long weekend. It's darker early. It's gotten cold in New York City. And the holiday season started way too soon this year. I couldn't tell you how depressing that is to hear Christmas music walking down Avenue A and 14th Street in New York City. It ain't even
And that's
Thanksgiving.
the thing, Shane, right? Like again, I really am so good on a personal level, but the reality is I'm pretty terrified by what is happening. I mean, there's a global ecological collapse. It's not coming, it's here and accelerating. And capitalism is, I used to say, and many people like us, Shane, used to say that, oh, this is late stage capitalism, right? As the inherent contradictions get worse, this is end stage, right?
Yeah.
Like literally capitalism as you and I grew up in is coming to an end. But I don't celebrate that because techno feudalism is taking its place. Fascism is rising objectively, not merely a political choice, but because the entire system is such that it does not work. The velvet glove that has been over the iron fist of the oligarchs is coming off because it is, as Patricia Veneer says, it's collapsing stage capitalism. So that's where we really are, folks. And so this is a weird place to be in where like the sun is shining. It's a beautiful autumn day here in Humboldt County. Ruthie and I went for a walk with our dog. It was a big, crisp day. As I said, I'm really doing well. And I'm kind of terrified at the collapse that is, it ain't coming, Shane. It's here.
I know. And it's the signs are all around us. I can't get over, most everything that happened in the news last week. And one of the scary things for me is watching the maggot world dissolve into what you just described as the techno-feudalistic rise of fascism and that style. And I want people to understand that, like, my opinion is the maggot verse came after the Tea Party, right? They just redefined and repositioned that brand to be Trump's maggot verse. And now what we're seeing is the cultivation and the rise of a white Christian nationalist movement. And you know who the spearhead of that one's going to be? Like your governor says, just dance Vance,
Yep.
his whole ilk. And
Listen,
what they have planned for all of this is insane.
I am so glad, Shane, that you actually talked about the Tea Party movement, because I want to remind listeners and viewers, if you're watching us live, thank you for that. If you're listening to us on a podcast or watching the video after the fact, thank you. But whatever, I do want to remind you, please like, comment, and subscribe on this, because our audience is growing. We are breaking through the algorithms, but the only way we're building this audience is because people like you are actually participating, right? So for all of you who are participating live, thank you. Please do use the comment section and continue to engage with us, but also make comments and share this with others, because that's how we break through. And the Tea Party. I do want to remind you that the Tea Party emerged in 2008 as a result of the corporate buyout and basically bailout of the big banks and of corporate America. And remember that Barack Obama was the president elect. George Bush was still lame duck. George, that bailout, that corporate bailout, that bank and corporate bailout together was actually brought to us by Larry Summers, the neoliberal Democrat, in conjunction with both President-elect Obama and lame duck President Bush, George Bush, and they got together, the three of them, and created this bailout. And what really galls me is the last time I checked, Shane, anger at big banks and Wall Street, that was the left. That was our signature. That was one of our talking points, right?
Yeah.
And I am literally 4 blocks away from the Humboldt County Courthouse. I went down there when that first happened, and let me tell you, it was a group of ragtag, ordinary folk who were out there raising hell, homemade signs, et cetera, et cetera. It was a genuine, organic outrage over a corporate and banker bailout using taxpayer money. And what really just chaps my hide is that the left and progressives were still intoxicated by the first black president, Barack Obama, had gotten elected, and they didn't want to be seen as criticizing him. And so they just basically let it go on its own. And, you know, politics, like science, abhors a vacuum. And it was about 4 to 6 weeks later that then the Koch brothers sent in all their organizers and their glossy prints and so forth. But if we on the left had actually taken that moment, the Tea Party could have been a redneck version, progressive populism, anger, rightfully aimed at corporate America and big business and big government for selling us out. But instead, liberals gonna liberal and basically allowed the right wing to take it over. And what a pity.
Yeah, they were celebrating the wrong thing. And like you said, they just turned a blind eye to it. And they, you know, the idea that that's perpetuated to the point to where we are today, where all of Trump's cronies and friends are filling their pockets every day, left and right. I just and the outrage, you know, it seems to be growing, but is it growing enough in the right direction, or is it too bifurcated? I mean, it's the same story over and over and over again.
It really is the same story, Shane. And I really look, there's a part of me that's like, you know, this is exciting, right? Like to watch everything beginning to collapse and seeing the beginnings of a genuine grassroots movement in response, right? And like if it was a movie, I'd be at the edge of my seat, like, oh my gosh, will they make it in time, right?
Yeah.
Like, and I'm not even joking. Like this is an amazing moment to be alive. And I'm reminded, one of my favorite authors is Tom Robbins. He recently passed. He wrote a bunch of great books, even Cowgirls Get the Blues, Jitterbug Perfume, Skinny Legs and All, Still Life with Woodpecker. He's got a great number of really great books. And I be honest, I can't remember which one it's in, but there's this great line where he says, and he was writing in the late 1970s, right?
Mm-hmm.
But here's the line, Shane. You know, it's hard to live in the last quarter of the 20th century because the world is falling apart too quickly to be very comfortable, but not quickly enough to be really exciting. To which David Cobb now says, as we come to the end of the last quarter of the 21st century, life is getting very exciting because the collapse is accelerating. And we are literally in a race to see, can from the bottom up, can we build new systems, new institutions, worker-owned cooperatives, community land trust, community-supported agriculture? I mean, we can go down the list. We talk about this on this program all the time, and we bring you people who are doing that all the time. And we are in a stage, Shane, where it is not clear whether we're going to be able to build up enough fast enough so that when the collapse comes, there's actually something to sustain us, or are our children going to live in a dystopian future? It really, like, I wish I saw it differently, but
I mean, I agree with you. I tell everyone that when we start talking about this topic, it looks like to me that we are in the middle of a race for revolution, and it's going to go one way or the other, and it's going to happen fast. So, I mean, I love your line from your author that you liked. That was a good one. It's not happening fast enough, and now I feel like it's just happening too fast in too many different directions for us to keep track of it. But it's a good thing that there are a lot of people on the ground that are doing things to prepare for it, because it's the work that needs to be done.
Got it. So you know what? Let's do this, because speaking of people who are keeping track of it, our good friends at Tracking the Crisis, the Democracy Collaborative, and Mel Figueroa. I love that tagline, Shane. They read the news so we don't have to. So if you got that teed up,
yeah, we got
let's
it.
take
a weekly news roundup of Trump administration actions and movement responses. On Monday, November 10th, after a record 43 days of shutdown, the government reopened after 8 Democratic senators caved and voted for the Republican spending bill without securing a single concession on healthcare or social programs. House Democrats broke into open mutiny following the decision, with Representative Ro Khanna and dozens of other lawmakers demanding that Chuck Schumer step down, calling out his ineffectiveness and lack of resolve as a failure of leadership. Republicans exploited the capitulation by slipping in a host of self-serving provisions into the bill, including allowing certain Republican senators to sue the government for $1 million each, blocking food safety regulations that prevents outbreaks from contamination of produce, and recriminalizing hemp at the federal level, destroying much of the CBD industry. Arizona Representative Adelita Grijalva was finally sworn in as a member of Congress more than 7 weeks after she was elected to her late father's seat in July. Grijalva's first act as a member of the House of Representatives was to put the final signature on Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie's bipartisan discharge petition to release the Epstein files. Earlier in the day, the Oversight Committee released 20...
Let's just pause this for a second, because Shane, I do want to just really underscore, this is the longest shutdown in the history of the United States of America. Yeah. There was so much pain on the part of ordinary people, myself included, associated with that. And the Democrats capitulated. They had every card. They had all of the ability to actually get some get some concessions out of the Republican Party and the shenanigans that they were playing. And as Mel Figueroa says, they capitulated. I really do want to underscore this. I don't know about you, Shane. I want to hear your opinion, but I'm furious at this. This is just another example, too many to count, on how the Democrats just play games and are not willing to fight. They'd rather make deals with fascists than work with eco-socialists.
Yeah, which blows my mind. You know, what they've... It's almost like they're just playing into the hands of the Republicans at this point. And I know I've said this before, that I get it. we live in a two-party system in this country, which is a ping pong ball that goes back and forth the damn table every 4 years. I get that. It's disappointing. This, what just happened, is an abomination and a slight to democracy itself.
So
And
this is my point, Shane. So yes, and I want to actually dig a little deeper. The reason I wanted to pause that I do want to hear the rest of the Tracking the Crisis, but to me, y'all, I'm gonna tell the truth as I see it. Now, maybe I'm wrong, but I now draw the conclusion that some of my other leftist friends have been saying for a long time, and that is, it's not that the Democrats are spineless, because they have plenty of spine when it comes to fighting the left. They've got plenty of spine whenever it comes to defending their corporate backers and the big banks and so forth. This was a sellout of us from jump. They just wanted to score some political points. They did not care and do not care. The leadership of the Democratic Party, Charles Schumer and his ilk, do not ultimately care, and they sold us out because they were most concerned about ensuring that the airlines, who were big donors to both Democrats and Republicans, had butts in the seats whenever for the upcoming harvest holiday travel session, the upcoming Christmas holiday shopping spree. And I wish I could say it different, Shane, but that actually makes a lot of sense.
No, that's exactly why they did it. That's the only reason that they did it. They didn't want to be the ones to close Christmas. And it's only the money that's behind them all that said, make the deal now. And that's what they did. That's what they did.
Yep. So there it is, man. I just really want to underscore this capitulation, this caving in was performative. It was another example number too many to count, how the Democratic Party leadership puts the interest of big banks, corporations, and their donor and their billionaire class ahead of the working class. And again, I am not criticizing rank and file Democrats. Rank and file Democrats and members of the Democratic Party are infinitely more progressive than the leadership of their party, but the leadership of their party does what it does, right? Empire gonna empire, capitalism gonna capitalism, right? Like at the end of the day, they are absolutely committed to a system that is destroying the planet and a system that's creating a racist, sexist, class oppressive world order. That's what we're looking at. So look at here. Let's go back to Tracking the Crisis.
His bipartisan discharge petition to release the Epstein files. Earlier in the day, the Oversight Committee released 20,000 more Epstein emails from his estate, containing many new revelations. The emails mention Trump over 1,600 times, including one that says Trump knew about the girls and spent hours with one of the victims at Epstein's house. Other emails refer to Bill Clinton, Larry Summers, and Tom Barrack, Trump's ambassador to Turkey, whom Epstein asked to send pictures of a child.
Oh my God.
On Veterans Day, November 11th, thousands of former service members in cities and towns across the country took to the streets to say no to corruption and tyranny of the Trump regime, stand in solidarity with immigrants and communities under siege, and denounce life-threatening cuts to the VA. Vets in ICE-ravaged Portland and Chicago marched through city centers and rallied at ICE facilities to demand an end to deportations and authoritarianism, while vets in occupied Memphis condemned the militarization of their city. Veterans also recommitted themselves to defending the Constitution and urged current service members to remember your oath, reminding them of their right and duty to resist unlawful orders. The buzz is growing around Black Out the System, a nationwide economic boycott scheduled around the Thanksgiving holiday and extending through Black Friday and Cyber Monday. Participants are encouraged to refrain from working or spending money at large corporate retailers. The initiative aims to become the most significant economic blackout in recent history and is getting attention in the mainstream media. That's it for this week's Tracking the Crisis. Read more by signing up for our weekly news roundup in your email every Friday at trackingthecrisis.org. Back to you, David and Shane.
Whoo, boy, Mel Figueroa brings the smoke, right? Like, and what I love about this is it is literally just objective, what they call reportage. And speaking of reportage, this week our guest is one of the most principled and powerful voices in the climate justice movement. Anthony Rogers-Wright is active with the Black Alliance for Peace, the Movement for Black Lives, and the Black Hive, where he and others are lifting up what they call a Black ecological future. Anthony is joining us from Brazil, where COP30, that is the Conference of the Parties on Climate Change. This is the big United Nations climate summit is taking place in Brazil. Now, these gatherings are supposed to be where the world comes together to solve the climate crisis, and this is the 30th version of them. But as we're going to talk about today, that's not really the whole story. So, Anthony, I want to thank you for joining us here on Redneck Gone Green. And before we get into the politics, what's it like on the ground in Brazil right now? What's the mood among grassroots folks who have come in from around the world to show up outside the official COP?
Yeah, it's great to see you, comrade. And I just want to say to your listeners, I'm sorry for probably a little bit of noise that they're going to hear. I'm literally looking at the Amazon River right now. And that's incredible. And it's Brazil, so there's always going to be some noise and whatnot. This is a very festive country. I would say that the mood on the ground today is pretty bleak, comrade. In addition to people of African descent, Brazil, of course, is majority people of African descent, the most African people outside of the continent in the world, on a continent, so-called South America, with the most African people outside of the continent in the world. Today, the Brazilian government basically denied Afro-descendant self-agency, as did the UN, where we were fighting for Afro-descendants to become a standalone constituency as part of the United Nations Climate Change Committee, if you will, also known as the UNFCCC. And, adding insult to injury, as we were walking out today, when I was rushing to get on with you, comrades, we also get the news that the UN approved this BS Trump plan for Rasa, which we know has nothing to do with self-determination and agency of Palestinian people. And furthermore, they've really been going out of their way to perambulate the issue of ecocide and genocide in Palestine, as well as in other places. I would say that it's nothing surprising, right? We know that the psychopathology of white supremacy ideology and the nuanced hatred for Black and African people was going to be pronounced. So we're not shocked, but it is still very, very disappointing. And then the last thing I'll say before we move on is that, yeah, there are a lot of agendas here, colliding head first, but few of those agendas have anything to do with addressing a global and accelerating climate crisis. There are over 1,600 oil and gas lobbyists here at a climate conference, which would be, to our comrade Figueroa's point, like letting Epstein, Trump, and Bill Clinton attend a conference on childcare and child safety. So pretty bleak, but we kind of knew this was coming, and we know that we have what we have to do, moving forward. And we'll talk more about, intermittent strikes and intermittent withholdings of our dollars. We've got to do more than that, comrades. It can't just be Thanksgiving to Cyber Monday, right? The Montgomery bus boycott happened until the job was done. Plan C in Birmingham happened until the job was done. And I think that one thing that we're learning down here in COP that we will bring back to the United States is, as leftists, we have to increase the quotient of our discipline and our resolve, and understand that there is no revolution that's been successful that has been bereft of some semblance of sacrifice.
So thank you for that, boy, really putting it into stark terms. It really is an honor to be able to talk to you from Brazil, and knowing that you are literally just yards away from the Amazon. That's a fine point on it. Anthony, before we go deeper into the politics, I want to start with your own personal story. What first pulled you into the intersection of both environmental and ecological work and racial justice work? Was there a particular moment or experience when you realized these were connected? Has this always been the case for you? Like your own story, how, like, just
Yeah.
give us a little taste.
Yeah, I mean, I was blessed to grow up with a brilliant mother, a Sierra Leonean immigrant. I'm a first generation Sierra Leonean. And we grew up in Harlem, New York. And, we had all the bus depots near us, a lot of other elements that emitted toxic emissions, greenhouse gases. And, I played Little League, right? And let's be honest, right? We see the shape of some baseball players. They ain't running marathons exactly, but I remember playing with a lot of my black and brown friends in the Harlem West Side Little League. And some of my friends, like after playing 2 or 3 innings, had to take a break because they had asthma. Right, like who needs to take a break like after playing baseball? But that's how acute the asthma instances were. And so I think that stayed with me throughout university and graduate school. But honestly, Comrade David, brother and Comrade David, it was really getting into environmental spaces when I realized that there's got to be more interventions because we have to be honest that we have a U.S. climate quote unquote movement that is extremely classist, that is extremely racist, that is extremely patriarchal, and in some cases mimics the colonization and imperialist aspects of empire that you just named. Let's take it for instance, one of the largest environmental organizations in the United States, if not the world, was founded by a white supremacist in your home state of California, John Muir. We need to change the name of those woods, by the way, in the Bay Area. So, I mean, I think for me personally, it really was just a call of duty, but it was also sort of like, wow, this is like a great way where I don't have to choose which issue of social justice that I want to get into because climate and environmental liberation is so intersectional, right? It's so interdisciplinary. It's economic, and it forces you to have a class as well as a racial analysis. I'm thinking of our dear brilliant brother, the great David Rodiger, who said, "Stop drawing lines dividing class and race, and start drawing lines connecting class and race." So it's an economic issue. It's obviously a physical environmental issue. It's an anti-capitalist issue, although most environmental organizations in the U.S. haven't figured that out yet. And what it also is a solidarity issue. So I'll tell you, comrade, and we've spoken about this many times, comrade David. Like when I go to Appalachia, I feel at home. I feel at home. When I go out to Western Nebraska and meet with these poor white farmers, I feel at home. And like when we're talking and meeting each other, and it's like, well, how do you feel about abortion? I'm like, comrade, why are we talking about abortion? You're a man, you're not going to have one. Let's talk about your material conditions, you know. And you're saying that I came to you from the ghetto. Comrade, come back with me to North Omaha. Come back with me to free Whole Foods Harlem, and you're going to see that the material conditions are so similar. So I think that that's a really beautiful part as well of being able to stand arm in arm with poor white and working class activists from Pennsylvania, Western Pennsylvania, and Appalachia, from snake handlers to former coal miners to sons and daughters and siblings of Blair Mountain, to the blackest black is black Cancer Alley to, of course, our indigenous siblings. So I think that's why I love it personally. It ain't easy, but we haven't really had a win since stopping the Keystone XL pipeline, but it is very, very personal. But I do think that what these contradictions that we're seeing, for instance, with data centers, right now, is a beautiful thing. And if we leverage these contradictions through a principled struggle with principled debate, we are going to have some amazing wins. Because as we're seeing right now, Republicans or so-called Republicans hate data centers by a 9-point margin more than Democrats and a 7-point margin more than independents. The class contradictions are lifting up, and even so-called petty bourgeois, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, red wine drinking moms in Thousand Oaks and, the Valley, seeing what's about to happen to their health care, are understanding, as our poor white and working class comrades in Appalachia are, that there ain't nobody else to extract from, y'all. Like you taking everything from the poor working class. They're coming for you now, and so that makes me really excited, personally and professionally as well.
So, Anthony, you are definitely lighting up the comments section. You're getting a lot of love and a lot of appreciation and a lot of good conversation and happening. And I love how you tied so effortlessly racial justice and economic justice. I also have heard you talk about being, and I do know that you are a policy analyst and a scientist of understanding the ecological crisis from a science background, as well as being an organizer. How do you see those two identities for yourself fitting together?
I mean, as I learned from, a lot of my mentors, from our dear brother Kali Akuno, the great Ajamu Baraka, Jaribu Hill, Jackie Lukman, Erica Keynes, all of the comrades of Black Alliance for Peace, and comrades from the Climate Justice Alliance, is that there can be no bifurcation between policy and organizing, right? That's been a major problem with the nonprofit industrial complex. They'll pay like so-called policy experts like six figures and then pay their organizers chump change and wonder why they're not winning, right? Like, how can you have policy without organizing? And how can you have organizing without policy? So I really think that, when you're dealing with like serious comrades, like, Kali, Jamu, Jaribu Hill, and all the many other folks who I named, you are subjected to a baptism of fire when it comes to how to organize. And I wouldn't necessarily call myself an organizer as much as an organizer adjacent. Because if I call myself an organizer, people from BAP are going to curse me out. Because but I do always defer to organizers when I do policy analysis. Because, Comrade David, if they can't understand it, which is the problem with a lot of these big green organizations, all these acronyms and abbreviations and terminology, it's like, how the F am I going to take this back to the people, whether it's the hood of Harlem, of the South Bronx, or the Prairie, or Appalachia? If it's not accessible, you're not going to be able to base build. And this
You know,
brings us to the point. Go ahead, brother. Yes, yes, yes.
no,
Go
no,
ahead.
I appreciate that. Like I say all the time, if you can't go into a pool hall or a bowling alley and actually break it down without dumbing it down, right? And again, I'm not saying dumb it down. I'm saying break it down. Speak in the language that people
Yes.
understand. I have absolute confidence and faith in ordinary folk, regardless of their circumstances, to be able to understand reality. And what you're
Right. Yeah,
describing,
but just real quick, comrade. Like, I mean, my favorite uprising, of course. We've talked about this all the time. Is Blair Mountain. These guys weren't MIT graduates, but they understood what was up with the material conditions, and it was easy to make them understand who was extracting from them and why they were extracting from them, including by bringing in slave labor vis-a-vis chain gangs, and therefore we had a beautiful multiracial, multi-ethnic, intergenerational, and intergenerational uprising led by the likes of the great Mother Jones, Italian immigrants, Black folk, all standing together because it was easy to understand this is our enemy, this is how they're extracting from us, and we have to seize the means of our production. And if you can make
Uh-oh.
oh, oh
Uh-oh.
heck. Well, there you go. Our man on the ground in Brazil, we've just lost him for a second, but I'll pick it up right where he was, and that is Blair Mountain. If folks don't know what he's talking about, the Battle of Blair Mountain was when an army of coal miners came together to fight not only the corporations, but the gun thugs and the Pinkertons, and this was literally an uprising. And it's really worth pointing out that Black miners were active participants and leaders in the Battle of Blair Mountain. They were fighting alongside both white Appalachian coal miners as well as immigrants. There were commanders and logistics officers who were immigrants and Black and white. It was a true multiracial example of solidarity that miners marched on Blair Mountain. It is an amazing story, and the historical significance of the involvement of Black miners is really worth lifting up, because at that time during World War I, Black soldiers were not allowed to serve in combat roles, making their armed participation in leadership in a labor struggle, and it was an armed struggle, makes it even all the more notable. So, to me, whenever we think about Blair Mountain and the multiracial, multi-ethnic example of Blair Mountain, it really cannot be overemphasized. Blacks and Appalachian whites and immigrants all working together against a common class enemy. And I see that our comrade is back with us, so welcome back.
Well, you see what happens when you talk about Blair Mountain, comrade. Empire, they cut the cords.
Yeah, that's right. And then, well, looky here. I don't want to run out of time here because you've already mentioned Black Alliance for Peace and the Black Hive. So I want to give you a chance to tell the listeners, viewers of Redneck Gone Green. We'll start first with the Black Alliance for Peace and then segue in to the Black Hive. What is the Black Alliance for Peace?
I mean, the Black Alliance for Peace is a beautiful construct that was founded by our dear brother, the great and venerable Ajamu Baraka, with the understanding that, I mean, there was just such a liberal approach to people-centered human rights and such a liberal approach to anti-war and a lack of connections between imperialism, colonization, patriarchy, and the psychopathology of white supremacy. I think, and I, of course, would never assume to speak for my mentor and dear brother and comrade, but I believe that he saw what I would refer to as a requisite intervention that was needed because he was not seeing a full racial, class, gender analysis when it came to anti-war and anti-militarism. So, I mean, Black Alliance for Peace is, I mean, as I think it's about 10 years old now, and it really is just in finding its footing. Brother Ajamu has recently stepped down. We are now led by the great jockey Luke Mon. Please check out her show on WPFW every Friday. It's called Darker Than Blue. Erica Kanes, a badass organizer and just fierce sister from Baltimore, originally from Brooklyn. And then, we have many others. And we've also just moved into a climate and militarism cadre that's co-led by myself and my dear brother Austin Cole out of the Philadelphia, aka Philadelphia. And we also saw a requisite intervention was needed because of such liberal tendencies, like dripping with like liberal inclinations when it came to the climate crisis, not linking militarism to rising emissions and rising imperialism, not linking war to climate, not linking genocide, my God, to climate. So Black Alliance for Peace is, I got to go ahead and say, it's got to be one of the more radical and principled Black formations in the nation. I'd be remiss if I did not speak about my dear comrades at the Black Hive, which is the climate justice arm. Oh, wait, one more thing about Black Alliance for Peace, Comrade David, is that we recently released a piece in the Black Agenda Report, of course, edited by the great Margaret Kimberly, called Basis for Climate and Environmental Liberation. And that is one of our major intervention points, is that we need to graduate, comrades, from climate and environmental justice, because justice evokes an idea of balance, right? It's not just getting everything you want. But at this moment in human history, this moment in planetary history, everything is so imbalanced right now. We are going to bust past the 1.5 degree Celsius threshold, likely the 2.0 degrees Celsius threshold, unless we have a mindset and a framework of liberation. We cannot have justice until we have liberation. Comrade David, we didn't talk about getting justice for Black slaves, right? We talked about liberating them, and we're still trying to fight for justice for Black people in the United States, in Brazil, and all over the world. So that's one major requisite intervention that we've made of, like, we're not giving shade to environmental justice. We appreciate the principles of environmental justice of 1991, the 1996 MS Principles for Democratic Organizing. But in this moment, as Cabral teaches us, understanding the material conditions, the political conditions of where we are, we know we need liberation before we can ever have justice. That brings me to my dear comrades at the Movement for Black Lives via the Black Hive. We are here in Brazil pushing our beloved Black Climate Mandate, which is a beautiful anti-capitalist set of demands through based on various mediums: land, air, water, diasporic solidarity, anti-militarism, and whatnot. And it's pretty new to Movement for Black Lives, which is just starting to increase its focus on climate and environmental justice, and hopefully soon climate and environmental liberation. And again, we're really just here to center Afro descendant people who, too often, as I named earlier, are just getting the shaft. Not because we're identity reductionists, and not we have no interest in being in competition with our non-African indigenous siblings. Okay, it's just to say, as David Rodinger teaches us, we have to understand our material conditions and the sets of our oppression, also known as the true meaning of identity politics via the Combahee River Collective versus identity reductionism. We eschew identity reductionism as much as we eschew class reductionism. And we also know that the only way we are going to come close to building something like Chairman Fred Hampton did is understanding the material conditions as Black people so that we can better understand the material conditions of poor and working class white people, et cetera, et cetera. So
You know,
that's pretty much the spiel.
I'm so glad that you brought up Fred Hampton and the original Rainbow Party, because, you know, I actually know Hy Thurman, who was a young patriot back whenever he was like, what, 17, 18 years old. And I will never forget seeing the photograph of Fred Hampton and other Black Panthers and young patriots were all Appalachian hillbillies, right? And Hy Thurman was literally wearing a Confederate flag that was literally stitched on to his raggedy ass denim jacket. And somebody asked Fred Hampton about that. And Fred Hampton, in the most disciplined but also kind and compassionate way, said, looky here, we know Hy. Hy's a good man. He's trying to figure it out. But what Hy is trying to do is find his own identity and his own reality. And we think that it is a mistake to go there. We know what Hy is trying to do, though. He's trying to be an authentic version of himself. So to me, like, where are the folks today who can look past that and say, how do we actually see our shared humanity? How do we actually see our shared struggle? And that's what I love about the Black mandate of that I see coming out of the Black Hive, that says this is for all of us. We do have to understand this, right? And at the end of the day, if we are going to either unite the class against not only capitalism, but imperialism and white supremacy and heteropatriarchy, I'll just say it this way, Anthony, we are at a moment in time where we are either going to win everything or nothing. The system will not allow the piecemeal.
That's right. And real quick, like, it's important not to romanticize, right? People have this like utopian thing when they talk about the original Rainbow Coalition. Like, there wasn't principled debate and there wasn't principled struggle. Right? It was a united front, comrades. It didn't mean that there wasn't argument. Well, what there meant was there was consequence culture, but not cancel culture, because we were looking at something bigger. And as Mao taught us, even with the united front that he forged against imperialist Japan, he said we got to bring together the masses while also resisting the hardliners. Right? Even Mao was saying this. So, I mean, the fact that these comrades were wearing Confederate flags was also a function of them wanting to reclaim that as not a racist symbol, but a symbol of poor and working class anti-capitalists. And Hampton had, as you were just saying, the foresight to see that, and rather saying, you know, F these crackers, we're not going to work with them, being like, no, 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 no. Because we see such similar material conditions that we can build this united front. And obviously it was successful because Hoover had Hampton assassinated, right? And if we don't get back to that, as you said, we're going to lose everything. And that, and I do have to run in a second because my food is ready, comrade, and I'm starving. But I mean, that said, this is where we have to not be ensorcelled and beguiled by the liberals and the so-called conservatives alike, because they know that the worst thing that could happen would be people like you and I, David, coming together on a regular basis, it scares the shit out of them. It scares
Yeah.
the shit out of them because they know that if we build the sports vis-a-vis Blair Mountain, again, what Jesse Jackson almost did, and we send that brother blessings to his health in 1988, that's it. That's it. And with these contradictions that we see rising, Marjorie Taylor Greene, data centers, healthcare, and what's happening with that, et cetera, Epstein files, they understand that they've got to find another way to obfuscate us or to distract us because they see it as well as some of us do. We need more liberals to see that. And then we always, and that's a story for another time. Have me back on the show. We'll talk about how we have to navigate the petty bourgeois.
Well,
Just
listen,
like, yeah.
we'll close it out, but before we do that, I want to ask you, where are you seeing the most exciting examples of communities building those alternatives, a cooperative caring economy that we talk about on this show? Where would you point listeners of Redneck Gone Green?
I mean, right where you're sitting, comrade. I was just with you, what, like a week or so ago before I came down here. And the burgeoning with our dear comrade Mel Figueroa on the scene now. You are on the cusp of engendering something that is very, very beautiful. Of course, we lift up what our dear comrade Kali Akuno is doing with Cooperation Jackson. We lift up what we're seeing with Colombos down here. In Brazil, landless movement, and of course the great Zapatista community, La Via Campesina, ecologists. So we don't have to build anything from scratch. We have the examples. What we have to do better, in the words of Cabral, is associate that with where we are, right? Not just take something from somewhere else and sprinkle it into our material condition and our geography and stir, understand it and work together. So I mean, I'm very excited. And like I said, with this data center stuff, comrade, these ones are coming in so-called red districts. And it's not people who are getting paid for the work, comrade. These are just everyday people not associated with a C3 or a C4 who just see there's an attack on our community. We're going to come together. And so far, these everyday people have done something extraordinary and already cost big tech in the last year and a half $70 billion. That's what's up. I mean, that's a drop in the bucket for big tech, but it's nothing to give shade on. So I'm excited, even though I'm also a little bit despondent. But when I see what y'all are building in Humboldt County, of all places, right? You're not just like a bunch of stoners. Y'all are like what I saw last weekend at Humboldt State. I'll always know it as Humboldt State, David. Was beautiful. And like I said, when y'all figure out what it is you're gonna do together and keep building trust, I can't wait, to come visit you, and it'll give me even more excuses to come out to the lovely Humboldt County and see you in 3D, which is what I like to do rather than seeing you virtually.
Well, that's the heart of it, isn't it? It's not just about policy. Policy is absolutely critical, but really at core, it's about culture. It's about relationship. It's about reclaiming our power to take care of ourselves, each other, and of Mother Earth. Anthony, before we let you go, I just want to ask you, where can folks follow you and support your work?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Black Agenda Report. I usually have an article coming out pretty much every week, like 2 weeks in a row. Then I take a week off. You can find me on Instagram at A Rogers, ROGERSWRIGHT, all one word. On X at Dubs, the number 4 climate liberation, and then Anthony Rogers-Wright on Facebook. But yeah, hit me up. I love to have conversations, and it's not so much about supporting my work as it is supporting the work of people like you and others who I am so inspired by and affiliated with. I'm just a vessel. I'm blessed to have an amazing partner who's about to bring a beautiful life into this world, as you know, brother David, who grows 60% of our food. So I mean, let's support each other, but let's stay in touch more than supporting my work.
Fantastic. Well said. Thank you so much, Anthony, for joining us
Thank
from
you, brother.
Brazil
Yeah.
at the COP. Really appreciate. I know that your food is waiting and you've been having a long day. So I want to thank you very much, Anthony. I also want to thank Shane Knight, the co-host of this program. I want to thank Ruthie Engelkey, who runs the board. But most importantly, I want to thank you, the viewer and listener, who is helping to grow the Redneck Gone Green community. We reminder that we write a Substack essay every week. We previewed Anthony and his work on the Substack this week. We'll do it again because next Monday we'll be joined by Sharon Kyle of the LA Progressive. She's a journalist, an organizer, just a phenomenal person. I can't wait to bring her voice into this conversation. And I want to remind you that the values that you're hearing here, these conversations, that it is so important to please share this episode to help make sure that we can build the cooperative, regenerative future that we so richly deserve and so desperately need. Can't stop, won't stop, y'all. Peace.